Hey, how you going? My name is Lachlan Watt, and music is my life. It's been about 4 months since I hung it up at Triple J, so I'm no longer a radio presenter, and if you're with me here right now, that means I'm finally officially a podcaster. I'm excited to see where this platform will take me. Thank you for checking it out. Has been a pretty busy start to 2025 for me otherwise, particularly with my job at Destroyer Lines as a tour promoter. Just last week, we announced I Killed the Prom Queen's 25-year anniversary tour to an absolutely massive response. There is actually a bit of a connection between Prom Queen and the first guest of this podcast. His name is Mikael Stanne, and in the 90s in Gothenberg, a city in Sweden, his band Dark Tranquillity pioneered the melodic death metal sound alongside In Flames and At the Gates. And then in the 2000s, this style really picked up steam all around the world, particularly through metalcore, with I Killed the Prom Queen actually traveling to Gothenburg to go record music for the recently deceased, their second album, at Studio Fredman with Fredrik Nordstrom, which is the same way Dark Tranquillity recorded the majority of their material over the years, such as Character, their 2005 record, one that really changed my life. It instantly captivated me. Michael's voice is just, mwah, his enunciation, his tone, his lyrics, just his delivery, everything about it. I've been influenced by it to this day. Character is one of the few records that I actually own on both LP and CD. I picked this vinyl up in Sweden the very first time I went there in 2016 with Viator's Murder. Probably a good time to let you know, if you are just listening to this, that this is a video podcast too. Doing a bit of a show and tell right now. Behind me on the wall is a Dark Tranquillity poster from their first Australian tour back in 2006. I pulled that down off the wall of the Brisbane show that night, and it has been with me ever since. But I actually finally got to meet Michael and have a chat with him for the very first time in February, because I booked Dark Tranquillity's most recent run of Australian shows. It was their first shows here in over a decade. They went great. The show was bloody exceptional in Melbourne that night. A few hours before that, Michael and I sat down to record this podcast, and we talked a lot about those early years. We also talked a lot about their modern times with their 13th studio album, Endtime Signals, which just came out last year. We also talk a bunch about the Halo Effect, a band that Michael started a few years back with some other members of In Flames, well, ex-members, sorry. Bit of a Gothenburg supergroup. Anyway, I suppose it's time to get into the interview. This is Music Is My Life. I've got a few more of these in the can. I'm hoping to get them out weekly. Thanks for checking it out. This is my chat with Mikael Stanne. Enjoy. Mikael Stanne, thank you so much for joining me on the first episode of my new podcast.
Well, it's a pleasure and an honor to be on the first. Awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. I finished up my radio show that I was hosting for almost 13 years last year.
Damn.
And a couple of people asked me towards the end, like, what were some artists that you never got to interview on the show that, you know, maybe you wish you had interviewed, and your name was up there.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
So
finally it's happening.
Yeah, I guess back in when I was 17 years old in 2005, Character really changed my life.
Oh, wow.
Impacted me significantly. Like, I was already a fan of the melodic death metal sort of sound. I was really into In Flames and Saw work. Yeah. And then Dark Tranquillity came across my radar with Character and just hit me in a way that was so different, and just the melancholy and the atmosphere of it. I was like, well, this just feels so much deeper than all the other stuff from this style that I've heard so far.
Brief 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy. 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that album was like a bit of a tipping point for the band in terms of your popularity, at least sort of outside of Europe, or is that just my perspective?
No, but it definitely was. I think it started in 2002 with Damage Done. I think that's when we started touring the States.
Yep.
But Character, definitely. I mean, we could see that things started to happen in a different way, you know.
Nice.
It was really, really cool. It changed a lot for the band, for sure. Like, I think we toured more than we had ever had at that time. And it just, opened up a lot of doors, basically.
Considering, you know, bands like In Flames and Dark Tranquillity were some of my gateways into death metal and extreme music. As one of the pioneers of the genre, I was wondering, what were your stepping stones into this world?
It started, I mean, in Sweden, it was kind of difficult to find music or metal. You know, there was no radio stations that would play hard rock even. You know, there was like eventually there was one radio show that played like 1 hour a week, and that was it. But that's all you had. You know, so everybody who was into something else than, you know, what was normally on the radio listened to that show. You know, it was called Rockbox, and it meant the world to us because that was our only kind of like way into something that we were kind of started to become passionate about. And then that wasn't enough. And then to find kind of music for us was difficult. Like there was one record store that had some metal, you know, and you had to kind of go by their recommendations basically. And then of course like fanzines and kind of like underground tape trading was my thing into the scene. You know, that's how I discovered most of the bands that I love today, you know. And it was super exciting, you know. All of a sudden, like you were in contact with people all over the world, and you discovered like kind of like these weird bands, you know. Like someone sent me like the first Morbid Angel demo, something like that, you know, the first album, and I never heard of it because it was not available in Sweden, you know. But I got it on cassette, you know, and that's how I discovered that, you know. And through like Thomas from At the Gates, like he ran a fanzine for a very, very short period of time, but people sent him, you know, tons of demos and cassettes. And of course, I was sitting in his room, like listening to all this new kind of music that was still so exciting and fascinating to me, you know. And there was everything from, you know, technical death metal like Nocturnus and bands like that from Florida, or you know, Dark Throne and black metal bands from Norway. And it was all kind of, it was so underground and so obscure that no one else knew about it, and that's what attracted me to the whole kind of extreme metal genre in general, and it just became everything. Wow.
So you and Thomas Lindberg were like childhood friends?
Yeah. In our teenage years, like when we were 16 or something like that, we lived really close to each other. So it was basically outside of Gothenburg, like south of Gothenburg, Bildal, where we grew up. It was in Dark Tranquillity, we lived on the same street, like the same kind of housing complexes, and so we lived on the same street, and that's where we started the band. And on the other side of the street, there was Thomas, and there was one bus line that led into the city. It was like 25, 30 minutes or something like that. And along that bus line was every other member from all the death metal bands in Gothenburg. So
that is just so insane to just think of like such an influential subgenre to just come from, you know, one tiny area. Yeah,
but I mean, we were just friends hanging out and kind of discovered music together, and we shared music. We went to each other's to kind of like tape records from each other and that kind of stuff, and that led to kind of the formation of bands. And we were basically just hanging out, drinking beer, playing music to each other, like listen to this one, listen to this. And so we always had a tape recorder with us, like everywhere we went. Normally we went to like the park in town, and we just sat there all weekend, just listening to music and drinking beer and like talking about music. And of course, you know, that kind of led into like the formation of some bands. And like before At the Gates, there was Grotesque, and the In Flames guys kind of joined that as well. And so it was all kind of like a very, very close-knit group of friends who share this kind of secret that we felt no one else knew about, you know. And that was kind of like underground death metal.
And
it's exciting.
Speaking of In Flames, you were the actual first vocalist for that band on Lunar Strain, yeah?
Yeah. So the thing was, when we recorded our first album, Skydancer in '92, Anders Fridén sang on that album. And so Anders sang in Dark Tranquillity first. And then after that album, we kind of parted ways with him. And I started singing in Dark Tranquillity, and I stopped playing guitar because I was crap. And around that time, Jesper Strömblad, he played in a band Ceremonial Oath together with Oskar Drodjak from Hammerfall, and Anders Ivers, who later played in Dark Tranquillity, and Tiamat and bands. And he wanted to do something else. So he started In Flames with some of his friends. And he asked me, because he had heard our first album, and he heard me sing a little bit, and I was like, all right, this is cool. Can you sing on a demo of mine, of my new band? And I was just desperate for experience, you know, and I wanted to be in the studio, and I wanted to rehearse and as much as possible. I wanted to kind of, you know, sing as much as I possibly could, you know, to learn. And so I said, yeah, sure. And then so we rehearsed a couple of times. We recorded a 3-track demo, and it was fun, and I loved it, and felt good. And then Jesper sent it to one record label down south in Sweden, Malmö, Wrong Again Records, and they said yes immediately. And then he called me. He's like, "Can you be on the album?" And I was like, "No, I just kind of switched to vocals in Dark Tranquillity. I don't want my first album as a singer to be something else than
Right.
Dark Tranquillity." But he said, "Well, free beer," and I said, "Okay, okay then." And that's what we did. So we recorded that first demo, and then some more songs in the same studio Fredman, early on, before they kind of knew what they were doing, basically. But it turned out really great, and it was fun. But that was it. We did one show where I sang, I think, in Berlin in '93. And
So it was never on the cards that you were going to be the full-time vocalist for that band.
No. It was just I was just kind of helping out.
Yep.
So, but it was super fun, of course.
But then all these years later, you're now in a band with a lot of original or early In Flames members.
Yeah.
That sounds to me like the kind of peak In Flames era.
Yeah. I guess so. The idea, I think, was it came about like with Niklas Engelin, and I haven't seen him that much. He lives a little bit outside the city, and we always, whenever we kind of met, like at an airport or a festival, we always hung out and talked about music and stuff like that. We always kind of changed, I'll send him like suggestions for cool records, that I listen to, and we've always done that. And it was like 4 years ago or something like that. We were sitting on a train back from the Grammy Awards in Sweden, and he was kind of like, "You know what? I think we have the same kind of taste in music, that, and I'm not doing anything right now. He was kind of leaving In Flames, and he was just like restless, and he had all these ideas, and he said like, should we do something? And at the time I just finished writing kind of the lyrics and everything for Moment for Dark Tranquillity, and I was kind of like, I was in a very kind of good mood and like good creative space, and I felt kind of like I just want to keep doing it, And so I just kind of rebuilt my home studio, and it just felt great. So I was like, "Oh, send me some songs and I'll sing. No worries." And that's what he did. And then he called me like, "I'm thinking about adding some members, who should play bass and drums." And that's like, "What about Peter and Daniel?" I was like, "What? Like, really? Do you think they would be up for it?"
We're getting the band back together.
Yeah, no, it was really like that. I was like, "Really? Do you think that would work? It would be fantastic, of course, And then maybe we can talk to Jesper as well." And we did, and it was kind of like, yeah, everybody was kind of on, and it was fantastic. I hang out with Peter all the time, and Daniel as well, through the brewery that they started. So it was just great that they kind of said, "Yeah, fuck it, let's do it." And this was right before the pandemic, so there was kind of like a great idea, and we said like, "Okay, cool, let's see what we can do. Let's have some fun."
Yeah.
And we just recorded demos, and then it was nothing more was made of it. But then the pandemic came, and we were like, "Okay, It was kind of like a good reason to hang out and to meet somewhere, to kind of go to a safe space, so to speak, because everything else was shut down. We went to the studio and just hung out and wrote songs,
So when that first album, Days of the Lost, came out, I thought that it was just going to be a once-off, and then we come out of the pandemic and the band starts touring, and now we've just got the second album, March of the Unheard, and it seems like you're basically in 2 full-time bands now.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it ended up being, and it wasn't really meant to be anything else than just something for fun, basically, or just so that we can hang out and see what we can come up with, and it kind of escalated. The first album, it was really well received, and it was fun, and we felt like, okay, let's do some shows. It'd be fun, and that worked out really well. And now we just came back 10 days ago from our first European headlining tour.
It looked like it was a huge success from all the photos.
It was incredible. Like, it was really, really cool.
Like all the
second
crowd
album,
sing-alongs and stuff. I was like seeing that on Instagram, just kind of blown away. Like, shit, this band got real big real quick.
yeah, it's been really really cool to see and so much fun to do, and it's kind of liberating. I mean, Dark Tranquillity has been going for 35 years, and it's it's for me it's everything. That's it's what I dedicated my life to, and everything we do is very well thought out. And when we write albums, we spend years making them because we have to somehow make something kind of in relation to the 12 previous albums and everything else that we've done before. So it becomes increasingly difficult, and the pressure is on. It has to be as good as we imagine it to be. And it's for me and Martin and Johan, like we sit for months and months just trying to figure it out. But it's also the most rewarding thing in the world because we end up with something that we can be happy with, and we're incredibly proud of. So that I love that. But with the Halo effect, and it was kind of like there are no expectations. No one knows what this is. It could be anything, and it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Like, we're gonna have some fun.
Just have fun.
It's gonna be a great experience regardless. It's gonna be a learning experience regardless.
A bonus that it turned out to be good and everyone seems to like it.
Yeah, and so that's what that's our thing. Like we don't want to tour too much. We don't want to do too much, work. Basically, we're just gonna whenever we feel like it and we feel like it's a good deal and it's a cool thing to do, we do it. But it's not gonna be like a full-time, thing, because none of us is really. We can't really do that, especially not me. But the other guys have all kinds of stuff in their lives that need to be, they need to be home for, basically. So
Dark Tranquillity remains your main focus
always.
Yep.
So whenever we have time, and I don't want anything to affect the other. If it affects me that I have to travel more than I've ever done in my life, fine. But I don't want it to affect anyone else.
How are you holding up with that so far? Like, what did you say? You finished a tour 10 days ago, and then you've just been on a three-day flight to get to Australia, and about to have a brutal few days of flying around this country.
Yeah, and then
into Asia.
Yeah, another 2 weeks or more. So it's a 3-week tour now, and then I'll be going home. But I'm not really going home. I'm just going to go to Gothenburg and then wait. Then my family joins me, and we go to Finland for 3 days of vacation, and then I start a tour with Cemetery Skyline, my third band. So
you're just putting your body to the absolute test.
Yeah, it's a lack of sleep is something I'm very very used to by now. So that's fine. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of traveling. This year is going to be absolute crazy. I think it's more shows in a year than I ever done, and I thought 165 shows in 1 year that I did 2 years ago was my maximum, but I think I'm going to exceed that this year.
Is that across all 4 bands? Because you've got a fourth as well, right? What's it called again? I'm just
Grand Cadaver.
Yeah.
But we're only doing a few shows. That's really hard to do. But Cemetery Skyline is doing like 10 shows, maybe Halo 25, 30, and DT 100 maybe.
Well, so let's talk about Endtime Signals. It's the 13th album, is it?
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
It's got a bit of a spark to it. I've been really enjoying it. It feels like a little bit re-energized in a way.
Yeah.
What would you put that down to? Just fresh blood in the band?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think like since Johan joined, as we were kind of finishing Moment, and before that actually, we were finishing up Atoma. Then Johan joined, and for Moment, like kind of he got into how we work when we're writing. How we talk about music, because we've been doing this so long, and it's always been kind of the same people.
Yep.
You work up a shorthand for how you communicate. And have a special way of thinking about music and stuff like that. And Johan comes from from all his bands where he does everything. He writes everything, he sings, and he plays guitar, and he does everything. So coming into a very kind of democratic situation was different for him, but it's really cool to see him kind of like adapt to it and kind of learning. So then after Moment and after touring, then Anders Givap, a drummer who was kind of like the main songwriter. He wrote most of the material that we later kind of like worked on and kind of finalized together. He quit, so it was kind of like, okay, now we kind of start fresh, and it's just kind of Johan and Martin who write material, and it's been basically always a bit of a compromise when we write. You know, someone has an idea, and then we turn it, like someone else turns it into something else, and then a third party comes in and kind of changes it, and then eventually it becomes something that we can all kind of agree on, you know. And that's a process that takes forever, but it's very interesting. You know, a song can take on so many different shapes and forms throughout that process. You know, we could start as something and then turn into something totally different by the end. And it's fascinating and really interesting kind of thing to go through, but it takes forever, and it can be really, really difficult and frustrating. But at the same time, like the end result is always something that we be happy with. But it's always kind of like all these different ideas that eventually come together, and I've always found that fascinating, the way that we worked. And on albums like We Are the Void and even Character in Fiction was very much like that too. Like everybody kind of wrote songs, and then we kind of picked and choose what we like, and eventually kind of we come together as kind of like, yeah, this is going to be the album, you know. Whereas with this one, now that was Johan and Martin and I, we started talking about what do we want, like what should a 13th album sound like, and what should it be now that we don't really have those kind of things that we need to kind of adjust to. Now we can just main focus, because we are on the same page always, not always, but very much so.
So what are some of those key ideas or key words that you have in mind when you're thinking what you want out of Endtime Signals?
It was basically, we wanted it to kind of convey how we felt, and I think we were not depressed, but at a kind of I don't know, kind of like kind of a bit broken after like everything that kind of started happening in the world as we were coming back. You know, after the pandemic, you figure like, okay, we've been through this trauma, we've been to this really, really difficult time in everybody's life. Mm-hmm. It has affected everyone in the world. And instead of kind of coming together and kind of realizing we've been through something and we kind of overcome it, let's be happy. Kind of the world turned into an even worse place in many ways. And we saw it as we were starting touring, you know, right after the pandemic. We were like, you know, let's go out. We want to see people again. And you could tell like it had really changed people and the environments and the communities that we were in. And it was just really kind of sad to see. And, you know, it was kind of upsetting and it was weird to be an entertainer of sorts, you know, at that point. Like, oh, here we are. Like, people are suffering like crazy. People don't have food on their table, and it feels horrible. And here we are, kind of like selling merchandise and screaming, you know. And it just, I don't know. It was hard to kind of find purpose for what we were doing. So that's what we talked about a lot. Like, what is our purpose? Like, what should we make? Like, what is it that we kind of provide that feels important, so that we dedicate all of our lives to it, you know? And so that became the kind of the starting point for the albums. Like, how do we? It has to matter. We have to talk really kind of plainly and kind of clearly about how we feel, and it should be more transparent than ever. And it doesn't have to be, you know. Normally, I would have very strong feelings, but I'm not comfortable being too obvious about it or too direct about it. So you kind of hide behind your words and stuff. And hopefully the emotion still comes out, but you know, but I think it's a more direct album, and also we wanted it to be emotional because that's how we felt, and we wanted it to kind of capture the mood in the band, and it took forever, and it was just the three of us in the studio for I don't know, a year and a half or something, but. We eventually felt that we got there, and there was also things that we needed to deal with, like Fredrik Johansson, who was our guitar player on the gallery in the Mind's Eye and projector. He passed away right after the pandemic, when we started touring, after years of struggling with cancer, and he sent us a lot of music and he was writing at the time because he was at home feeling miserable, and he just wanted to do something creative with it. And so we had all this material that we knew we wanted to use somehow to kind of pay tribute to him and kind of like do something that to kind of in his memory. And but dealing with that, of course, was incredibly difficult. But we knew we wanted to, and we had to, and we decided that there will be a song that is comprised of the material that he gave us.
Which song's that?
It's called "One of Us Is Gone," and
that's
so
like probably the most melancholy song on the album, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And so it became a song about how he dealt with it and how he dealt with his passing, and so that was the last one that we wrote. But it was kind of like always on our mind that eventually we will get there.
Yeah,
that made kind of like that means like the rest of the album has to have equal weight, so to speak. You know, it has to be mean something. As much as that song, because we were working on it continuously, but we were kind of afraid of finishing it, because if it wasn't good enough, then we have somehow, I don't know, tainted his memory or didn't live up to the promise of his material.
I think
it's
interesting to consider, like when you were talking before about coming out of the pandemic and touring, and sort of like, I guess when you zoom out and you sort of like, I'm screaming on stage trying to sell T-shirts, like these people are struggling to kind of put food on the table. It kind of feels a little bit silly to be doing this stuff sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But then I guess when you zoom in, and then even something like having his music being able to live on through the band in a track after his death, like I imagine that would mean so much to all his friends and family.
Yeah.
And even just to you guys.
And to us, yeah, of course. And so that gave us purpose as well.
Yeah,
and also kind of just screaming about the things that has been incredibly upsetting, and kind of like the injustices of the world and all those things that we're all kind of carrying around, and hopefully, and I think it really, when we started touring for this album, it was we were in the US first, and then we did a European run in November, and it was great to kind of to meet a lot of people who had a lot of strong feelings about the album, you know, and how it spoke to them, and what it meant to them, and you know, people who shared stories, you know, that were similar to ours, and how they have been affected by what has been going on in Europe and in the US, and so that was really kind of affirming, you know, in a way. We felt like, wow, you know, it has made some kind of impact,
it
you
is
know,
important.
somehow, you know, and it's been important to some people, and that's all that matters, basically. You know?
Yeah, like, and I think all those collective, like when you collected together, like all those little individual impacts that you can make on people's lives does help change the bigger picture. And I know for me personally, when I was a sad, depressed teenager, like Character and other Dark Tranquillity albums really like meant a lot to me and helped me through a lot. And then I don't know if there's anything exactly specific I can point to with Endtime Signals, but it just really sort of filled me with the kind of like hope, and there's almost like a sense of survival in the music. I would sort of describe it like riding a dying horse to the finish line or something.
Yeah.
Like it feels really triumphant.
Thank you. And I think, and it's kind of like we talked also about like the kind of, you know, we play songs to each other all the time, you know, like obscure, weird stuff that you find somewhere. And kind of like the running theme, at least for what we were listening to at the time, was kind of like, it's the most kind of depressive or kind of sad music that we could find, because that's what felt right. You know, it's just like, this is what I want to listen to. I don't want to listen to kind of positive, upbeat stuff. It doesn't fit, you know, it doesn't feel right now, you know? And so we said, and normally I like to think that I'm, positive in most ways, or try to at least have like a positive spin on things, and like, it's going to get, it's going to work out, all is going to be well. But I didn't really feel that. So we decided that the album should also like maybe not have that kind of positivity. It would just be bleak because that's what it felt like. There's no silver lining, you know. But I think maybe you, and I kind of find comfort in that too, you know, because if you go like, yeah, it's kind of like revel in that misery and kind of like go with it. And I think that just that sometimes feels good too, you know. And that's the kind of music that I've been drawn to lately as well, where it's just like infinite bleak misery and darkness, and it just it feels good to be there. You know,
what bands have been doing that for you lately?
I think it's a lot of like instrumental music that and synth and doom, particularly like bands like Bell Witch, stuff like that. That it's just Resin and bands like that, or just drags you down into it, and it just feels good. You know, it's like what you need.
I'll have to send it to you if you haven't heard it. But have you ever heard a band called Crippling Alcoholism?
Oh yeah. I was listening to them on the plane here actually.
Oh wow, yeah, their album from last year was my favorite record.
That's
last
incredible.
Year.
It's really, really, really cool, and I love it. So that feels good too somehow. Like it
shouldn't.
No, I know, but it's just it kind of no, but it's just it's like talking to a good friend, and they go like, "I understand you," and that's what it feels like when you listen to that.
And so there's this, I guess, more melancholy, misery, and sadness in Endtime Signals, but in the March of the Unheard, I found it felt a bit more positive, get up and go.
Yeah.
So you had to kind of coming out of that album, it was like, all right, it's time to flip the script.
Yeah, and that's what's fun about it too, because it's just the way that Niklas and Jesper write songs. It's just like they go full on heavy metal, and then they make it heavier, you know, and it's just so easy to relate to, and I understand immediately what I'm supposed to do when I hear those songs. I just get it, and it's like, oh, this is perfect. And I think there's a lot more. Like my idea for the lyrics for when we started the band was kind of like taking from our collective kind of experiences. You know, how we grew up together and what it was like then, and what kind of drew us into the stuff that we do today, and how it has affected us. You know, and for both good and bad, you know, like for Jesper, he has struggled with a lot of things because of like his lifestyle during those early years with the band, and of course it has affected, you know, a lot of relationships and all that kind of stuff. But also, like, many of us have kids in the same age that we were when we started hanging out, so it's kind of fun to kind of look at like see the world through their eyes and how different it is now from then, you know. So it's and so I tried to kind of think about what it was like when we were teenagers and sing about that, but through the experience that you have now, you know. And so that's been it's been kind of fun and kind of maybe not easy, but way easier because
then Dark Tranquillity.
Because there's nothing really to kind of take into consideration, just like you just move forward. You know, and that's fun. And we already started. I know Niklas has already written some new songs, and I'm like, oh man, okay.
It's not going to stop, is it?
No.
So you the Halo Effect actually came to Australia last year, right?
Yeah.
How were those shows?
It was really cool, like so much fun. We went to New Zealand 2 shows and then 4 shows here, I think it was, and I was amazing and so much fun to kind of travel together, and we talked about that when we started the band, like it's fun to be in the studio, sure, you know, but let's travel together and stuff that we just haven't done. And even though like Daniel and Peter, obviously for a long time they were together, but they haven't done this in years, so it's kind of like going back to your kind of favorite thing in the world to do, and so it's a lot of kind of joy that comes from just that, you know. And it was really cool to see, and I hadn't been here in 7 years or something like that at the time, so it was fantastic, and it's cool. Hopefully we can do it again soon.
Yeah, that would be sick. I was kicking myself afterwards, but I live basically an hour outside of Melbourne these days, and I can't remember what my excuse was at the time, but it was something to do with like I just can't be fucked going in for the journey.
Yeah.
And sort of one of those decisions I made where I immediately regretted it the next day, being like, I can't believe I didn't go and see the Halo Effect last night because I just was on the couch being a piece of shit instead.
I know that feeling.
But I did actually see, I think it might have been, if not your first show in Australia, it was your very first tour, Dark Tranquillity 2005, I believe it was, at the basement in Brisbane.
Okay, yeah.
In like a little 200 cap room.
Ooh, yeah. I remember that.
Touring on Character.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was cool. Yeah,
that was.
I remember that being just crazy. I remember like not sleeping for days. Barely remember that trip, but it was great fun.
Yeah, not today, but this week will be a little bit similar for you in terms of the lack of sleep, but the shows are all selling well. Sydney is sold out tonight, a little over 600 now, so I think it's all going to be a fantastic run of shows.
Oh, fuck yeah. I'm really excited, and it's also fun because, some of the guys in the band I have never been here.
Yep.
And so we had a fantastic day out yesterday, just, walking around the city and see all the beautiful places. And we're excited. And we're well rested, so it should be good.
Sweet. So I believe it has been 10 years since the last time Dark Tranquillity was here. Why has it taken so long?
It's not for lack of trying, that's for sure. Like we have, obviously it's difficult for us, coming from the other side of the planet, but it's also, we have to kind of like somehow make a tour that is more than just Australia, and usually we do Japan and maybe China and Korea and stuff like that at the same time, just to make it financially viable and kind of so that it works. And that's been the problem basically. And also last time we were here, we had problems with a promoter that kind of stiffed us basically. And that was kind of rough. And then it's been kind of, started working with some promoters as well that was less than serious. And so we were just like, we didn't really want to take the chance. And it's really crappy. And I feel really ashamed and I've missed it. And it kind of sucks. Like I hate going like, we want to go, we're making our best effort to do it, but it just doesn't really work. Yeah. And that's it's been a struggle. And our booking agent and our management, like they've been working like crazy for years. And now finally it's happening. So, and I really couldn't believe it for the longest time because there's been so many suggestions and kind of like ready tours that have been like, oh, this looks like it's going to happen. Yep. But then kind of something kind of falls through and then everything kind of falls apart. But so I was kind of hesitant to believe that it's real. But
I think the tour sort of ended up in my lap because I think one of those not so serious promoters you were mentioning maybe didn't come through at the finish line. And then it was like, hey, would you want to do this? For like, it needs to be these dates because we've already got Asia booked. And I was like, I don't know about those dates. There's so much on that week that I'm terrified of putting it all on up against everything else. Yeah. But it's all selling great. So my fears were unfounded.
Fantastic. That's awesome.
I think, I guess it just goes to show the strength of the fan base and the hunger that everyone in Australia has had waiting to see you guys.
Oh, that's amazing. It's something that you not constantly have to kind of remind yourself, but sometimes you have to go like, it's actually like something that we started in my parents' garage. Takes us here every once in a while. It's pretty awesome.
On the street that Gothenberg came from.
Yeah.
So what's happening after the Asia tour?
I'm going on tour with Cemetery Skyline, my goth pop rock band in Finland. That's going to be cool. A couple of days. Then I'll be home for 2 weeks. And then we start the second leg of the European tour. So we did the first together with Moonspell and Wolfheart and Hyres. And now we're doing it like the second leg of all the cities and countries that we missed. Same deal, which is going to be super cool. I'm really excited. That's 5 weeks. Then we'll be home by end of May, and that's when the European festival season starts. So I'm doing festivals with 3 bands, so there's going to be a lot of flights and some double duties. Sometimes 2 bands in one festival, and sometimes 2 shows in one day. That's how stupid I am.
Do you ever sit back and sort of just go, why the hell am I doing this to myself?
Very often, yes.
Well, yeah, like the name of this podcast, I don't know if I actually told you yet.
No, you haven't.
It's Music is My Life.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of like within my band, it sort of started as a bit of a sarcastic kind of statement.
Yeah.
Where I guess you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to the airport on 2 hours sleep or something. And you're just like, why the fuck are we doing this?
Yeah.
And you just, like, instead of saying, why the fuck are we doing this? You just be like, music is my life.
Yeah. This is what you, yeah, this is.
And then you play like an awesome show and you can sort of just say the same thing, like, hell yeah, music is my life.
Yeah.
And it's just the biggest ups and the biggest downs, but there's nothing else you'd rather do, right?
Very true. And I feel it a lot, like just how it could be devastating, just how sleep deprived you are, and how you get up 3 a.m. just to play a show at 11 at night, and then you party because you're super happy afterwards, and then it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and then the bus the bus will pick you up at the hotel at 5, and you get home, and it can be, you realize like you go like, what the hell, like what a waste of time this is, but at the same time that hour on stage makes it all worth it.
Doesn't
it really
compare to
does.
anything else.
No. And
have you ever had like a normal civilian life, so to speak, before all this?
Yeah, or during. So yeah, I've always worked. I used to be a kindergarten teacher for many years, and then I got into working with disabled and handicapped organizations in Gothenburg. Different ones, and then so I was there for almost 20 years, working like to make sure that everybody has access to everything, and kind of like this what do you call it, like a non-profit organization that kind of makes sure that everybody has the right kind of care at home. So I worked with a guy like in his house, always kind of making sure that he can do like all the stuff
24/7 care.
Yeah. So I did that for 17 years. But then before the pandemic, I realized that I don't really have time, and I need to focus on.
Well, with four bands.
Yeah, but all that started later. So it was kind of like when I quit working, kind of like I'm going to focus on making an album now, and that was Moment. And then after that, I just never went back. And that was during the pandemic. I couldn't work anyway, so I was kind of like, okay, let's do something else.
But I guess that would be like really rewarding work too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I loved it, and it was great to kind of go from, touring where everything is kind of taken care of. And it's very easy, you just have to focus on your thing, and that's it. To just really, really caring about someone else.
Being you're the one that's taking care of everything for someone else.
Yeah, so so I really like that. So yeah.
Do you think if music stopped for you tomorrow, that's what you'd go back to doing?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I really like it, and it's the upside, of course, it's that it's always been flexible. Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm going away on Wednesday, and I'll be home on Tuesday. Fine, all right, see you next week. That kind of stuff. It's just very easy. So that's the key to kind of maintaining that kind of work when you're working every weekend, basically.
So what does everyone else in Dark Tranquillity do while you're out doing all your other bands?
But it's not that much. It's like a couple of weeks here and there, and I maybe do one tour a year with Halo Effect. So it's not that much. But it's now that we were in Europe with the Halo Effect, and the other guys were kind of like, it's kind of weird being home and not writing or not preparing for a tour. It's crazy. But of course they've worked, and everybody has all their stuff, and so it's I think it's been good for everybody, kind of to relax and kind of recharge before the kind of the second leg of this tour, and for this one, of course, knowing that there'll be a lot of travel, and for three weeks of flights every day almost.
So I know that you said that Jesper was already working on new Halo Effect stuff. Is that a thought for Dark Tranquillity, album number 14, or are you still just going to ride this album for a while before you start
we're gonna write for a while, and normally that's what we do. Like we tour as much as we can, basically, and then once that is done, we go like, okay, now we go back and we start thinking about it, and it will take a while because you have to somehow come to a place where you feel inspired again, and you feel like, now I have something to say. Mm-hmm. You know, we have something that we feel is, you know, it feels fun to write again. You know, because it's as I said, like it's a long, very demanding process to write a DT album. It's just, it takes a lot out of us all, and it can be frustrating, but yeah, as I said, like the reward is still fantastic, but it takes forever, and you go into this kind of writing mode that for years, where you just don't think about anything else, and it takes a toll on, you know, everybody around us as well, you know. So we have to. It's good to wait, and I don't think, like, we're not really in a hurry. We have enough material. Yeah. We can. I mean, we are gonna kind of celebrate some of these older albums a little bit more than we normally do. I mean, Character is 20 and the Gallery is 30, so we're gonna do a tour later on in Europe where we kind of highlight those more songs from those albums and stuff.
So like a split anniversary tour between both albums?
Yeah, kind of. Something like that. We haven't really finalized the details about it, but it's going to be cool. So it's fun to do things like that, you know, a little bit more, and not just album-specific tours that we normally do. And
what's the set list looking like for these next few shows in Australia?
It's
How far back are we reaching?
I'm not sure, but it's pretty far. Projector for sure. But it was fun, like, because when we started this tour, we decided to rehearse more songs than normal, to have like much more to kind of choose from, and have so that we can do rotating sets and play different things, especially when we're playing cities close to each other, because there's a lot of people who will go and see 2 or 3 shows in a row, or, you know, in a tour. So we wanted to give them something special every night. So we changed it up a lot. So we'll see. I don't know how long our set is tonight, but we're going to play a lot of stuff, and hopefully, I mean, it's always a bit of a nightmare putting together a set list, because everybody wants different things, you know, especially like if you want to please the audience, there's one set, and if you want to please the band, there's one set, and then and everything in between, you know.
Yeah, so. It's you can never please everyone.
No, but I think it's been good. Like we've been really pleased with it, and we had a fun time kind of rediscovering some songs that we haven't played in forever. And we did this set this summer at Summer Breeze Festival in Germany, and we were releasing the album that weekend. So we had like a headlining set on the Thursday, and we started playing at midnight as the album came out. You know, the very kind of minute it came out, we started playing new songs and stuff like that. It was very elaborate and very cool. But 2 days before that, we did a secret show where we only played songs that we never played live. That was a bit of an undertaking, to say the least. It was crazy, but it was super fun just to kind of like rediscover those songs and go like, what the hell were we thinking when we wrote this? You know, but it was still fun. And,
like,
you know,
as in, like, it just didn't, those songs don't hit as hard live?
No, we just never thought of playing them.
Oh.
You know, some songs we played back in the day maybe, but some of them we had never played. So we just kind of picked them up, listened to the album, and we're like, all right, let's see if we can pull this off.
So you mean they just kind of got left behind in the studio?
Yeah. But it's easy. You go on tour after an album, and you play 5 songs or something like that, or 6, whatever, from the album, and then kind of stick with it. And then some songs just get left behind. It's weird, but so that was fun. So we kind of, and it's fun to keep everybody on their toes, and especially me. And, you know, some songs that I just almost forgotten. You know.
Well, we are almost getting to like an hour or so here. So I wanted to ask, what is the first piece of music that comes to your mind when I ask, like, what music changed your life more than anything else? It could be a song, it could be an album.
Yeah. I mean, I remember vividly when I was getting into like metal and some thrash, you know, like I was listening to Metallica and maybe some, I don't know. It was probably like just mostly Metallica. And this was kind of like, 87 or something, 86, 87. I was 13 or 14. And I had a friend who had an older brother, and he was one of the cool guys, you know, in our part of, on the street where we lived. And I went to his house, and it's like, can I borrow some of the albums? You know, I need something new, you know, and he said like, yeah, you should listen to this. This is my brother's album. It's like, it's pretty fucking cool. Like you'll dig it. And I just brought it on, but it had a super cool cover. And I was like, okay, this looks cool. It was, you know, and it was Flag of Hate, the EP by Creator. And I never heard anything like it. And I never kind of had that experience before where I felt like this is the coolest thing I've ever heard. Like I cannot stop listening to this. And I just went on, you know, I listened to it over and over again. I thought it was the coolest thing, and I just looked them up, and of course I went out and bought all their albums that were released back then, and you know, and I went to see them in '88 when Extreme Aggression came out, and I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And then a year later we started the band.
Back when I was 1 year old.
That was when we kind of started. That was the kind of like the pivotal for me thing, like hearing something that is so kind of aggressive and intense and fast and kind of this fury and anger and hate and all that stuff. It's like, this is what I need. Like,
yeah.
I don't know why, but I was drawn to it so much, and it became kind of an obsession that is still nurtured to this
still
day.
Going.
Yeah, of course.
Well, thank you so much for jumping on this podcast with me, Michael.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Is there anything else you would like to say before we wrap it up?
I'm just super happy that we get to do this and get to come here and scream at you guys.
Awesome. Thanks for listening to Music Is My Life. This podcast is self-produced by me, Lachlan Watt. I'd like to thank Audio Technica Australia for providing the high quality equipment that has made this possible, as well as Patrick Galvin at Hollowbone Studio for the design. The killer theme music that you are currently hearing was written by the legends TJ Cowgill and Sam Saljuki. Catch you in the next episode.